Chair, we're now live. Thank you.
I bring the committee to order, please. Thank you. A warm welcome to those
Unfortunately, we don't have any more chairs that we can bring. Not that I'm aware of. Do you want me to go and have a look?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're happy to just...
yeah, we'll just pause it for a minute, yeah. We have to pause it, ladies and gentlemen, for a minute, yeah. Okay, let's try it again, shall we? Just bring it to order. A warm welcome to those attending and our viewers watching live on the Council YouTube channel Hillingdon for London. My name is Councillor Higgins and I'm the chairman of this committee. Details of business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible in the room and online underneath this live broadcast. For those present in the room and attending to speak, please note that you will be filmed and any statement you make will be recorded and made public. And a reminder to anyone speaking today that your voice will only be audible online if the microphone is switched on. The second thing is we don't have a drill today for a fire alarm, so if the alarm does go off, can you please follow officers outside of this building? Mobile and tablet devices in the audience, can you make sure they're on silent or switched off? Obviously, we are a council trying to go to digital and paperless, so most of us will be using our computers. If they do die during the evening, we might have to have take a few-minute break to get some power sources. Attendees, before I move on to the agenda, I have Councillor Adam Bennett, my Vice Chairman. Welcome. Councillor Shiria Walana, Councillor Darren Davis, Councillor Mand, Councillor Gaelic and Councillor Singh. My officers present tonight are Ros Johnson, Head of Development Management and Building Control, Kate Crosby, Area Planning Service Manager, Owen Gacornahan, Planning Team Leader, Michael Heaven, Planning Officer. Is this turned up?
They're quite loud at home. There is a button on there you can try.
Is that better? Not really? Okay, I'll use my other voice. Officers present are Ros Johnson, Head of Development Management and Building Control, Kate Crosby, Area Planning Service Manager, Owen Conconahan, Planning Team Leader, Michael Heaven, Planning Officer, Hayden Richards, Deputy Team Leader, Dr. Tilly, Transport Planning and Development Team Manager, Natalie Fairclough, my Legal Advisor, and Liz Penny, my Democratic Service Officer. With those introductions, we'll go straight to the agenda. Can I have apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, apologies have been received from Councillor Burrows with Councillor Ahmed-Wallana substituting, and from Councillor Chamdal with Councillor Davis substituting. Thank you.
Both councillors welcome. Thank you for stepping in. Can we have declarations of interest matters before this meeting? None? Okay, lovely. Can I, to receive the minutes of the previous meetings, are they all agreed? Agreed? Okay, thank you. Matters to be notified in advance or urgent, there is none. To confirm that items of business marked Part 1 will be considered tonight in public, as there's no Part 2 to be considered at all. We're going to have a slight change of running. We're going to start off with item 7, which is 13 Oak Avenue. Is it Hayden? There you go.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Is there? Yeah, perfect. Okay, so before we begin the presentation, I'd like to draw everyone's attention to the addendum, because there are some updates on item 7. The first update being that the Council's planning enforcement team are investigating 13 Oak Avenue to determine whether it is a C3 dwelling or a HMO. They're also investigating whether the extensions at the property have been carried out in accordance with the approved plans. And for the avoidance of doubt, the enforcement matters are separate and are not material to the application that we are considering today. So the recommendation of approval remains the same, and regardless of the committee's recommendation today, the enforcement action will proceed at the site. In addition to the above, and to protect the amenities of neighbours, 2 additional conditions are proposed. One is to ensure that the new dwelling cannot be used as a HMO, and the other one is to ensure that the bathroom windows are obscure glazed on the new house. I'll now begin my presentation. So item 17 refers to 13 Oak Avenue in West Drayton. The development seeks planning permission for the erection of a 2-storey house with 2 bedrooms, associated cycle storage and amenity space. In terms of location, as you can see on the plan, the site is on the east side of Oak Avenue. It's set back from the street and is fronted by a small green. In front of the green is a small parking area. The area is residential and comprises 2-storey semi-detached and terraced houses predominantly. In terms of constraints, there aren't any major constraints to the site, although it should be noted that it is upon potentially contaminated land. In terms of plans, here we have the existing and proposed block plan. As you can see at the moment, there are some extensions to the side of the development site. Those extensions would be replaced by the new dwelling, which is indicated on blue in the plan in front of you. In terms of the existing floor plans, as you can see, the house has been subject to several extensions, and the house is a family house. As shown on the plans, it is a family house. In terms of the existing elevations, as you can see, the property has been finished in brick, and you can see some of the extensions which you could also see on the floor plans. Here is the proposed ground floor plan showing the new house. As you can see, at ground floor you have the living area, toilets, bathrooms, kitchens, etc., and it would be attached to the existing house. Here's the proposed first floor plan, which shows the 2 bedrooms at first floor, and here's a roof plan showing a small storage area to the new house. In terms of other plans, here's the proposed building section plan showing that there would be adequate floor to ceiling heights within the new house. And here we have a proposed elevation plan showing what the new house would look like. As you can see from the elevation plan, the house is going to be pretty similar to the existing houses within the terrace. It will be finished in brick. It would have similar fenestration and window detailing, and would also have a pitched roof like the other houses in the terrace. As you can probably see, it does have a slight setback in its front elevation. This setback is 3 meters approximately, so it wouldn't be seen from the street scene, and it wouldn't be seen from the street scene because of the actual location of the property, which is on the corner of the site, which is also sat back from the road and separated from the road by the green. In terms of the proposed site plan, as you can see, both houses would have both houses would have had gardens to the rear. There would be some front amenity space which would provide access to both of the new houses. There'd also be cycle storage to the front of the site, and the 2 existing trees on the site would remain. Here we have some CGIs of what the house would look like. Here is a bird's eye view of the site, and now I'll go into some photos. So here is a view of the site from the main road. As you can see, the house which is subject of our consideration today is on the left-hand side, right in the corner, so it's the house furthest to the left. So the new house which is being proposed would be barely visible from the street scene and would be in that corner. Here is a view of the site from the pedestrian footpath outside of the site. That is one of the extensions which has been built at the house, and that extension would be knocked down and replaced with the new house. Here we have a view toward the existing side extension and outbuilding. The outbuilding would be removed to provide better access to the rear garden and also provide better space to access the new house. Here's a view from the new dwelling toward number 11 Oak Avenue, which is the nearest neighbour. Here is the existing side and rear garden with the trees which will be retained on the site. Here are some long distance views towards the neighbouring house from within the rear garden. Here is the rear garden at present. As you can see, there are some boundary treatment fences which have already been erected. And here is the existing house, 13 Oak Avenue, as it exists today. As you can see, it's been extended. There are some permissions in place which would allow for extensions to the house. Here is the parking area outside the front of the site. And on this slide I'd like to stay, as I'd like to conclude the presentation, but I just want to be clear, so I'll be reading. So, to conclude, the proposed development is considered to have an acceptable impact on the character and appearance of the area due to its design and obscured location. It is also considered to provide new residents with acceptable living conditions and to cause no harm to the living conditions of neighbours. To limit the number of people at the site and to protect the amenities of neighbours, a condition is recommended removing PD rights for extensions and outbuildings. A condition is also recommended to ensure that the house is not used as a HMO. It is noted that the development includes no parking space. However, a parking stress survey has been submitted in support of the application. The parking stress surveys were done at 1:30 a.m. and showed that only 60% of the available spaces in the area were occupied. And as I went there during the day, and as you can see on this photo, there was also parking space during the day. It is therefore considered that the parking needs for the development, which are anticipated to be 1.5 parking spaces, or 1 parking space, or 1 car, could be accommodated on the road without causing any harm to neighbouring amenities or the local highways network. Additionally, existing dwellings in the area have no allocated parking spaces, and therefore the proposed development would mirror a parking arrangement which already exists in the area. The Borough needs additional housing, and this dwelling would contribute to those needs. For the reasons outlined in this presentation, the committee report and the addendum, it is recommended that the Planning Committee approve this development. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hayden. We have a petitioner, Jane Brookfield. Are you present? She's have a written response, is it? Okay, if you'd like to read that out for us, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have received a written statement from the lead petitioner in respect of this matter, who is unfortunately unable to attend in person. She says, I thank the committee for considering the petition from my neighbours, which lists just some of our many objections to this planning application, which committee members will see as the last of a long line of planning applications for this premises. The report before you regarding this application provides information which is somewhat different from the experience of local residents. The most important being that the current property has been extended and extended so that its current capacity is far greater than the 4 bedrooms as stated in the report. The plans of the existing building show an area designated as a study and another very large area which is left open to interpretation. The original terrace property has in effect doubled in size, as the site plan figure 1 confirms when comparing it to all other properties around the green. The new proposed 2-bedroom house adjoining the current property would create a bulk and overdevelopment which would be completely out of keeping with the character of the area. Although set back and in the corner, it will create a prominent and excessively large set of buildings which would dominate the views of abutting homes. As for the proposed new house, although stated as having 2 bedrooms, it has a roof area of the same height as the existing property, with the likelihood that 2 further bedrooms will eventually be created in this area to match the existing. Therefore, the proposed 2-bedroom property could and will be easily converted into a 4-bed property. Combined, they would have the ability of creating a very large HMO with possibly some 10 bedrooms between the two properties, accommodating up to 20 persons. The family home description within the report is totally misleading in my opinion, and the opinion of my neighbours, as the current house has been accommodating many people. The front of the property already has 2 external meters, and the rubbish piled up outside the collection is often more than a dozen black sacks, far more than would regularly be discarded by a family home. So if this application is approved, it will be full steam ahead for a large HMO. A large HMO would have serious consequences for the residents of Oak Avenue. Parking in the area is already restricted, and neighbours with dropped curbs are fed up with the cars and vans from the property, making it very difficult to get in and out of their drives due to extra vehicles. The current use of the site, which residents have reported as an unofficial HMO, has caused more noise, litter and disruption. Our unique green in Oak Avenue has been negatively affected by the number of people living in the existing property. So in essence, all of the assessments made by officers within this report, stating that the proposed 2-bed property would have no impact on the character of the area and the amenity of its local residents, cannot be verified, as they have been based on an underestimate of the capacity of the current building as well as the proposed. On this evidence and the points raised in the petition submitted by my many neighbours, I ask that the committee refuse the application, or if undecided, ask for a full site visit, as the capacity of the existing property in its current use is not as shown within the report, and the proposed new 2-bed property has the potential to have its bedroom capacity increased by 100% once permission is granted. There are major unforeseen consequences for local residents if this application is approved. Thank you. That was from the petitioner, Chair.
Thank you, Liz. I think you got a written response from the agent now as well. Yeah?
Yes, that's correct, Chair. Thank you. So the agent has written saying, "We write in support of the application for the erection of a 2-storey, 2-bedroom attached dwelling at number 13 Oak Avenue in West Drayton. It is noted that concerns have been raised regarding the current use of number 13 and the impact the development would have on the character of the area. We understand the importance of maintaining the integrity and character of the area and wish to address these concerns directly. Regarding the current use of number 13, we wish to clarify and confirm that any speculation about the property being used as an HMO are entirely unfounded. The property is and will continue to be occupied as a C3 dwelling house by a single family. This commitment to preserving the single-family nature of the dwelling underscores the applicant's dedication to maintaining the harmonious residential character of the area. To support this assertion, we have provided substantial evidence to the Council, including a short-hold assured tenancy agreement and photographs that clearly illustrate the absence of any indicators of HMO use. Additionally, 2 enforcement officers visited the property on the 11th of February 2025 and established that the property remained a C3 dwelling house. This evidence unequivocally demonstrates that a change of use from a C3 dwelling house to a C4 HMO has not occurred, and there is no basis for any claims to the contrary. Therefore, it is categorically declared that number 13 Oak Avenue is a C3 dwelling house, and the applicant has no intention of altering its use. In fact, following the grant of consent, the applicant's brother will move into number 13, while the applicant and his family will continue to occupy the new dwelling. This arrangement further underscores the applicant's commitment to preserving the single-family nature of the property and ensuring that it continues to contribute positively to the character and cohesion of the neighbourhood. Regarding the impacts on character, number 13 occupies a generous plot on the north-eastern side of Oak Avenue. Positioned at the end of the cul-de-sac, number 13 benefits from a unique location that allows the proposed new dwelling to be a relatively discreet addition. This positioning ensures that the new dwelling would not appear prominent within the streetscape, thereby maintaining the existing visual harmony. The scale, design, materials and detailing of the new dwelling have been meticulously selected to complement the architectural form of the surrounding dwellings on Oak Avenue and nearby roads. The proposed 2-storey, 2-bedroom attached dwelling has been thoughtfully designed with sensitivity to the existing context, ensuring that it integrates seamlessly within its surroundings. The applicant wishes to reassure residents that the proposed dwelling has been carefully planned to enhance the character of the area rather than detract from it. The design takes into account the aesthetic and functional aspects of neighbouring properties, ensuring that the new dwelling responds positively to its context. This approach ensures that the new dwelling will be an appropriate and harmonious addition to the site. Moreover, the new dwelling is expected to assimilate effortlessly within the locale, preserving the character and charm of the area. By maintaining consistency with the architectural style and scale of the surrounding properties, the development will contribute to the overall appeal and cohesiveness of the neighbourhood. In conclusion, the applicant is committed to ensuring that the proposed development at number 13 Oak Avenue enhances the character and appearance of the area, providing a visually pleasing and contextually appropriate addition that aligns with the existing streetscape. Taking the above points into account, we respectfully request that this application is approved. And that's on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Singh, and it's from Paddington Planning. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Liz. Councillor Sweeting, would you like to come and take a seat? Whichever one you want. You have a choice of 4. As you're aware, as a councillor, you only get 3 minutes. And the clock, you should know that. Okay. So whenever you press the button, ready to go.
I speak in support of the petitioners and explain my reasons why this application should be refused. The report states that the proposed attached 2-bedroom property will be relatively modest with sufficient roadside capacity to accommodate vehicles from the existing property and the new. The report also states that it is designed intimate in scale, would not result in a reduction in residential amenity, would not result in a significant increase in activity or people movement. And finally, that the existing property is a family 4-bed home being rented to a single family. However, the visit by the Council's enforcement team has found significant discrepancies with this family home label, and with the officer's assessment being that it was being used as sui generis HMO, with the potential of having 8, not 4 bedrooms. The fact that this had been reported as an HMO last May did not unfortunately lead to this being confirmed. Now I come to the proposed new 2-bedroom property. Will it stay a 2-bedroom property? If you look at figure 4, you will see that the new roof is similar to the existing, which has the addition of skylights delivering 2 more bedrooms. So this modest 2-bedroom property will easily morph into a 4-bedroom property on 3 floors. It could also be merged into one large property with ease. So the number of bedrooms between the existing, no longer a family home property, and the new is 12 bedrooms with a minimum capacity of 24 people. So what then for it being in keeping with the existing area? What then for it not affecting local amenity? What then for it being modest? There are also specific planning issues to support refusal. One concerning the first floor bedroom window of the proposed new dwelling. This window to a habitable room will be only 7.5 metres away from the flanked wall at number 11 in direct contravention to the Council's minimum 15-metre requirement. This window will also directly look into the private rear garden of number 11, thus resulting in overlooking and loss of privacy. I ask that the application be refused due to the many inaccuracies in the interpretation of the capacity of both buildings, that both the existing and proposed properties are owned by the same person who has been found to be using the property as an HMO, as well as for very legitimate planning reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeting. Does any members wish to have a question to Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Sweeting. Just on that last point there where you said the owner has been identified as having an HMO, just to clarify, is the investigation underway still for enforcement action, or has that actually been found? Just so we're clear.
Ros will answer that question for you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, we've heard quite a lot of information there, some of it conflicting around the use of the existing property number 13, so I just think it would be helpful if I could clarify various matters relating to that. So the planning application purports that the existing dwelling is a single-family dwelling, and the report was written on that basis. Now, you've heard that there have been some enforcement complaints alleging a change of use to a HMO. Now, it's my understanding that the complaints were originally received in May 2024, but they were received by private sector housing, so the planning enforcement team have only recently become aware of the situation, hence, during the course of the processing of the planning application. So a recent site inspection was carried out by the planning enforcement officer on the 11th of February. Now, that was post the publication of the committee report. Now, the planning enforcement officer has provided some comments and an update on the investigation, which we have included in the addendum for members' information. Now, essentially, the situation is that it is unclear currently what the use of number 13 Oak Avenue is. So we can't say for sure at this point whether it is a single-family dwelling or whether, in fact, it's a small HMO, which would be permitted development. A small HMO, just for clarification, is for up to 6 unrelated individuals, or potentially it could be a large HMO, which is over 6 individuals. So the planning enforcement officer noted that there could potentially be 8 bedrooms within the property, but it was felt that further investigation is required, so there's no conclusion on that point. So we need to be very clear about that, and we've reported that in the addendum for complete transparency. Now, importantly, officers' view is that whether or not it's a HMO or a dwelling doesn't alter officers' recommendations that planning permission ought to be granted for the new dwelling. So in officers' view, it's not a material, it doesn't have a material bearing on the decision tonight, which is why we have continued to present the application to you this evening. So hopefully that is helpful, but happy to take any questions around that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Sweeting. Would you like to take your seat? Okay, so I'll open it up now to members. Who's going to? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. Can we just get some clarity on the distance between the first floor window, which Councillor brought up? Can we just get some clarity around that?
Thank you. Great question. I think the distance is as stated, which is around 7.5 metres. However, that is a similar distance to the existing dwelling, which also looks toward number 11, so it wouldn't be out of keeping. And also, I think there was a reference earlier on about a HDAS document and a 15-metre requirement in terms of outlook. That document is no longer in use.
Councillor Dave?
Is there a way that we can put something into condition that the window could be obscured, something like that, to give the residents peace of mind?
Yeah, the first floor bathroom window would be obscured, however the bedroom window would not be obscured, and as I said in my report, apologies, they would provide a similar outlook to existing first floor windows at the property, so it wouldn't cause any additional loss of light, loss of outlook, and loss of privacy.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Alana.
Thank you, Chairman. How many people currently live there in that property?
Thank you, Councillor. We can't say for certain, but that wouldn't be material in the planning consideration today.
So how many times this property has been extended? It's quite a big dwelling, and it's newly proposed as well.
Thank you, Councillor. To clarify, the property has been subject to a single-storey rear extension, which is approximately 6 metres, a side extension, which is approximately 3.9 metres in terms of width, and it's also had a first-floor rear extension.
So, from the objections and the petitioner and the councillor's speech, there is a fear that it potentially will become HMO. How can we safeguard?
Sorry, I just want to get Ros to clear this up quickly.
Yeah, thank you. All helpful questions. So just to sort of clear a few things up. So if we're thinking now about the proposed new dwelling, so officers have recommended a planning condition to prevent the change of use of the proposed new dwelling to a small HMO, which ordinarily you could do without planning permission. So that's important to note. We've also recommended another planning condition which would prevent the addition of extensions, including a loft dormer extension, without express planning permission. So ordinarily, in most dwellings you can do a loft conversion without planning permission depending on where it's located and meeting various criteria, but we have proposed to remove that right for the new dwelling. So essentially, if you grant planning permission for the new dwelling, if it was to be extended in the future, a planning application would be required, and if it was proposed to convert it to a HMO in the future, a planning application would be required. Now, if we now think about the existing dwelling, or HMO, number 13, so just to be clear, it was originally a dwelling. We don't know whether it's still a dwelling or possibly a HMO, but it could convert to a small HMO without planning permission, so up to 6 unrelated individuals. If it is indeed a large HMO for over 6 individuals, that would require planning permission. So, regardless of the outcome of today's decision on the planning application, the planning enforcement team is investigating the use of number 13. If it is deemed that there has been a breach of planning control, the planning enforcement team will consider appropriate next steps. But that will continue sort of regardless of the planning decision. Does that help?
Yeah, Councillor Gaelic.
Thank you, Chair. So in the summary of representations received, there's a note that they noticed 13 people living there. Was there any photographic evidence submitted with that, like different people coming in and going out of a property? Because obviously it's being rented, it's rented accommodation. Also, the 2 recent enforcement visits, were both from the planning enforcement or other teams visited, and was there a prior notice given to those visits?
Right.
Yeah, so I'll do my best to answer those questions. What I don't want to do is go into full details around the planning enforcement investigation, because that's an ongoing investigation, and the details of a planning enforcement investigation are usually remain confidential, obviously for for obvious reasons. Now, in terms of the evidence submitted, Hayden can answer in terms of information submitted as part of the planning application in terms of representations, but there may be other information submitted to the planning enforcement team which would be confidential. So I don't want to sort of go down that route essentially, but I don't think it's material in my view, because the number of people living in the existing property isn't material to the planning decision. So what we need to think about today is we're asking ourselves the question, is it appropriate in planning terms to have a new dwelling? So that existing property already exists. It may be in use entirely within, planning law, or it may be that there's a breach of planning control. That's being looked at separately and will be addressed in an appropriate manner. So what we need to think about today is whether the proposed new dwelling is acceptable in planning terms. So it doesn't essentially matter how many people are living in the existing property, if that makes sense.
Can I give a bit of advice to members? We are a planning committee. We can't put everything right. It's the planning application in front of us that we have to deal with. There's other parts of the council that we're dealing with this situation. It's been brought to the council's attention that it might be, no one said it is, no one said it isn't, a HMO. So until that is, that's a separate thing, and that's not something that we have to deal with on this committee. Councillor Davis, I believe you were next.
Thank you. Sorry, I've completely forgot what I was going to say. Is there a way that we could put a condition in to stop any form of linking between the properties? So I'm just taking again what Councillor said, is that it's quite a large development on plans. There could be an opportunity to put an additional door to link the properties internally. I don't know if there's anything that's happened. If there's anything that we can do, I'm not sure.
So ordinarily you can merge 2 properties to one without planning permission, but I think importantly, and I think the concerns that people are raising are regarding potential use as a HMO. So to create a large HMO for more than 6 people, you do require planning permission. So in my opinion, if you were to sort of merge the properties and convert them to a HMO, that would require planning permission.
Councillor Mand.
First of all, thank you, officers, for a comprehensive report, and thanks, Ms Johnson, for providing context on the HMO. I mean, I concur with what the councillors have said earlier. Any sort of development, regardless of its size, is always going to have some sort of impact on residents, and I think it's important that residents and petitioners understand that we as a planning committee are here to look at it from literally a planning point of view, and we have to sort of take the emotional aspect and sideline it on that sense. And yes, HMO has been mentioned quite a bit, but I think it's absolutely clear that any potential HMO uses are obviously after this enforcement investigation, and plus it will require additional planning. My question is on I know I don't want to talk too much about the enforcement, but just in terms of the length of the investigation and the timing of this application, do we know how long these investigations normally last?
It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, who knows. It's what you said earlier on is the same. It's something that we can't really discuss really because we don't know. So it's like, if I had that crystal ball, I'd be sitting in Barbados, but I'm not. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. I guess in some ways an addition of a new house, reducing the size of the current property, does lessen its merit as an HMO. But I don't know what the other members of the committee think, but I would like to propose a site visit on this one. We don't do them very often, but the petitioner mentioned it, and I think both the petitioner and Councillor Sweeting have raised some valid concerns. The two things specifically that I'd like to get out of a site visit, one is the overdevelopment of the site. It looks in the pictures, and I've just been looking here on Google Maps, it is quite a densely populated area. I would like to see it myself, to see whether actually building a brand new house in somebody's garden is overdevelopment or not. The other thing is to do with the parking. So in the photo that's on the screen now, that what looks like a silver Ford Focus, if my eyesight's not that great, but that looks to be parked half on the pavement. When you look on Google Maps and you look at the condition of the pavement, it's quite clear that there are the sections that are still slabbed rather than tarmac, that there is damage from vehicles, which suggests that parking half on the pavement is the norm. To me, that isn't a road that has plentiful parking, and actually on the Google Maps view there are hardly any parking spaces available. This was taken in July 2024, and the road is quite narrow, so we don't to build a new house and that is going to come with extra parking. I would like to see the road myself, so I propose a site visit.
Okay, I mean, obviously, are we saying that the information in front of us is not fulfilling? Look, the officers here always do a very comprehensive report, but the parking survey that was done once at 1:30 a.m. that shows there is ample parking differs from the middle of the day, July 2024 Google Street View here, which shows there to be one space, cars half parking over crossovers, and we have a photograph there of a car half parked on the pavement. So I don't feel comfortable that we have fully reviewed parking, and I would also, in terms of the overdevelopment of the site as well, like to have a look. We don't do site visits very often. They are warranted, I think, on odd applications. I think this is one, I don't know the area. I think it would be helpful for the committee to be able to see it. But that's just my view.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to add a couple of points related to that. So, Councillor, you very helpfully explained why you think a site visit would be appropriate, which is, really helpful. I suppose just to touch on a couple of the points, so particularly parking. So I suppose my question would be whether, if we carry out a site visit, what would that kind of add in terms of the information that we've got before? So we do have a parking survey which the Highway Authority has considered and doesn't object to, and that sort of explains that there is capacity. So I suppose if we do one visit at one particular time, is that really going to add a huge amount of additional information? So that was one point. In terms of character, that's perfectly entitled to that opinion if you feel you need to go on site to make the judgment in terms of character. We have seen some photographs, and obviously you've had officer's recommendation. Just one final thing for members in terms of considering whether you feel a site visit is appropriate. So the application determination deadline that has currently been agreed with the applicant is the 21st of February. If we do defer the application for a site visit, slightly that will go over that date before we can bring it back to committee. So members would need to be aware there would be a potential risk of a non-determination appeal. So that's just something you would need to bear in mind in reaching your decision as to whether you think it's essential to make a site visit.
As long as you don't mind, the report is comprehensive. I don't feel comfortable being pushed not to do a site visit just because we only have 10 days to go.
I feel that it's officers giving us all the information, as a committee where we can do what we want to a certain extent. But I want to make sure that members are aware of the situation. Okay? So, Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I support Councillor Bennett. I understand only 10 days to go, but the reason is antisocial behaviour, parking is if they put the application for HMO in the future, so we have to think about the parking as well.
Okay, so we proposed and seconded. I just want to make concern to members that, we had a site visit on the application we're going to discuss, and only 2 of us turned up. And that was me and Councillor Bennett. So, if you're going to propose this, please, I expect you to be there, okay? So, it's been proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, those in favour of a site visit? Okay, that's unanimous. There'll be a site visit then. Thank you very much. Okay. If you're here for that application, you're welcome to leave quietly, please, and no talking outside, because obviously we have to carry on the committee. We're going to go back to item 6, which is 36 Moore Park Road, Northwood. Owen, I think that's yours.
Thank you, Chair. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay. The item is 36 Moore Park Road. The application seeks planning permission for a change of use from existing C3 dwelling house to C2 care home to accommodate up to 4 children. As part of the scheme, it would also include associated bin and cycle storage. The application was first presented at committee in September last, where the item was deferred for site inspection and also more clarity on staffing and parking. A member's site inspection took place on the 23rd of January during school drop-off time between 8:15 and 9 a.m. in the morning. So before I begin the presentation, I would just like to draw your attention to the additional comments within the addendum, item 6, which include ward councillor comments and 2 additional comments from the public. So the site is located within Moore Park Road and comprises a 2-storey detached property. The property is close proximity to St. Martin's School, which is located the big building on the left-hand side. As you can see, it is also just outside Dean Road area of special local character, which lies opposite the site. So here you have a bird's eye view of the site, and on the left-hand side you see the local school, private school, an aerial of the property, and there is the existing site block plan and the proposed site block plan. And you have your existing plans and elevations, and then the proposed plans where you see the living accommodation on ground floor, and you have 5 bedrooms on the first floor. One of the bedrooms would be for staff, and there'd be 4 bedrooms for the children. And on the left-hand side you see also bin storage and cycle storage, as well as the existing garage. So there is your proposed elevation. You can see between the garage and the flank elevation the bin storage there. And there you have your proposed roof plan. And this plan shows spaces for parking. These have been amended following the site inspection, and it shows 5 car spaces, 1 in the garage, 2 in front of the property, 1 located behind the garage, and 1 to the right, just in front of the TPO tree. And here you have the front elevation, the rear elevation of the property, with also a street scene view from Mezzen Close. And these photos also just give you a reflection of the day of our member site visit. Officers were there from 7:30 a.m. and did surveys of parking along the street during that time. And as you can see, there are quite a number of spaces available during that period. And then
Look, excuse me. Look, if it's a public meeting, it means. Excuse me. Can I finish? Officers were there 7:30. Members turned up at 8:30, and we were there till 10 o'clock. Okay, so we were there that day, and what we're seeing there is what we saw as well. I will not take. Excuse me. It's not selective. This is not. I'm not taking anything from the floor. I've done the decency to give 2 petitioners 5 minutes each. I don't have to do that, but I've done that out of courtesy to the residents. Now please, no more comments from the floor. Thank you very much. Sorry, officers, can you carry on?
Yeah, and here I just identified the 5 parking spaces on site, which show 1 in the garage, 1 in front of the garage, and 2 in front of the bay. These are other conditions we also attach, which I'll go through when I go through the assessment. So in terms of principle, the scheme would lead to a loss of C3 residential dwelling, but will continue to provide a form of residential accommodation that is in general need within the borough. Both London Plan and Hillingdon Plan identify a need for care homes within the borough. I would state H12 of the London Plan says the delivery, retention and refurbishment of supported and specialised housing, which means identified needs, should be supported. Policy H8 of DM policies support this, provided it does not lead to an over-concentration and caters for an identified need. Paragraphs 9.8 to 9.14, the committee report goes into detail on the need and over-concentration. The care home would accommodate up to 4 children, which would include care workers 24 hours a day, with 2 workers during nighttime period, and a maximum of 4 staff on site at any one time. A total of, as I said, a total of 5 bedrooms are shown. 1 serves a care worker. The care workers would be on a 3-day shift pattern with carers staying overnight. The proposed home would not lead to an over-concentration of similar uses and would be fully integrated with the residential surroundings. Both policy and children care services teams confirm there is a need for this form of residential accommodation in the borough, and as such it would meet the exceptional circumstances test, which allows the loss of residential where it meets other policy requirements. This need for a care home form of accommodation is also supported by the MPPF paragraph 63. In terms of design, the changes to the front of the property, both bin and cycle storage, would be discreetly located between the main property and the front garage. These external changes are considered sympathetic and would not impact the local character. Similar, the modest increase in hard standing would not impact the leafy character of the area. Our tree and design officers have raised no objections to this change. In regards neighbours' amenity, this is dealt with in detail in paras 9.27 to 9.52 of the report. Conditions have been attached to ensure that the use would have limited impact on the wider neighbourhood. These include a maximum number of staff at any one time, which would be 4 on site. Condition 5 is a maximum number of children, which would be 4. This ensures the use would be modest in scale and more akin to a residential C3B rather than a large-scale commercial care home. A further condition is recommended restricting times of visitation. The site also shows it can accommodate 5 car parking spaces, which ensures that the use would not rely on street parking. The staff rota times provided also shows that the staff would arrive before school drop-off and leave at times before peak sleeping times of 11 p.m. In terms of comings and goings, there is sufficient parking off-street with the plans showing approximately 5 spaces. The overall working pattern would also ensure that the comings and goings from staff would be kept to a minimum. Sufficient space would also be available for visiting the premises, as we have 1 space for a visitor. Further to this, a noise management plan provides protocols and procedures that staff will be trained in dealing with noise over and above what is expected. Given the nature of the property detached with a large area within the curtilage of the front and rear garden, it is considered that there will be no adverse impact on adjoining residents in terms of noise and disturbance. Officers are satisfied that there will be no impact on neighbours' amenities as such. In terms of highways, we have reviewed the application following our site inspection. No objection from our highways officer. Further in-depth assessment on the highways is in paras 9.60 to 9.73 of the committee report. As stated, 5 car parking spaces which meet manoeuvrability. This ensures that there's a parking space for 4 staff plus 1 space for visitors. 2 post-deferral site inspections have also taken place which examine street parking, and officers are satisfied if there was a need for parking, it can be accommodated. The site is also within walking distance of both bus and underground services. A further concern related to crime and social behaviour within the local community. There is no substantial evidence that this use would increase crime or antisocial behaviour within the local community. The care home would be staffed with carers who will be trained to deal with children with emotional difficulties. Documents provided within the application included a general management plan, a good neighbour policy and a noise management plan, which provide more detail on how the care home would be managed and staffed, trained in dealing with antisocial issues. As part of that, there's a complaints procedure included if the local community have any concerns when the use is operational. Based on the detailed information, officers are satisfied that there would not be any significant safety concerns to warrant a refusal. Other issues that have been raised, the care home would need to meet the criteria of such facilities as regulated by Ofsted. This would be outside the remit of the planning assessment. The provider can only be registered a house as a regulated service with Ofsted once planning permission is granted. Any grant of planning permission would form part of their application pack, and each property would have its own registration number. An informative has also been attached reminding the applicant of the requirements for Ofsted. Overall, the scheme is considered acceptable, subject to conditions as outlined in Appendix 2 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. That's quite a thorough evaluation of the situation. Can I have called the first petitioner, Mr. Latham? Would you like to come? Oh, you would like Mr. Doe? I'm going to go first. Okay. You're Mr. Dovey, yeah?
I am, yeah.
Okay, right.
And can I thank the committee for...
Your 5 minutes will start as soon as you hit the microphone in front of you. Turn it on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. This is an application by a local resident of Northwood to put a commercial care home for children with emotional and behavioural needs on another residential road in Northwood, the road that he doesn't live on. The site has previously been the subject of a National Crime Agency raid for drug dealing, whilst the applicant was the owner of that property. And now we are told that First Chapter Homes will be caring for these children, despite having no track record in running a children's care home, that company having been set up in March 2024. The members of this committee will note that there's huge opposition to this proposal from people living around the site who will be directly affected. There have been 3 petitions. 2 of the petitions are here with over 360 signatures, over 100 online comments. Councillor Lewis, the local MP, David Simmons, both support this. The headmaster of St Martin's School also supports our position and is opposed to this development. These are all council taxpayers. These are all local voters. The concerns of those living on this road, we submit, should not be ignored, and we urge this committee to refuse the application. We urge you to put the rights of residents to quiet enjoyment of their homes above the right of this property investor to make profits. Now, I'm going to address the committee on a couple of really crucial concerns. First of these is noise, and paragraph 9.36 of the planning report and paragraph 9.42 detail the council noise officer's conclusion that the noise will not be above the norm within a residential setting. Now, in our submission, that is a perverse conclusion because this is most certainly not going to be a residential home. Nowhere, it's going to be nothing like it. Apart from being a money-making business seeking to ramp up profits, this home is not like the houses surrounding it, and that's the key point. Because throughout this report, there's reference to it being analogous to a residential home, and it's similar to the homes around it. It's anything but that. First of all, because the number of people who are going to be in that home will exceed the normal number in residences surrounding it. There's going to be 4 children, 4 carers, presumably there's going to be a cleaner and a cook, so that's 10 people every day. There are going to be dedicated social workers visiting, dedicated youth workers visiting, according to the report, every 4 to 6 weeks, but that makes it around 1 visit a week, so that adds another person to the 10. There are going to be 4 sets of family likely to want to visit and 4 sets of friends for each of those 4 children who will want to visit, and that's going to be up to 8 p.m. Every day. Remember, members of the committee, these are children facing emotional and behavioural difficulties aged 12 to 17. the report refers to the use of restraining techniques. There are 3 pages dedicated to how restraining techniques are going to be used. This is going to be a home where there's going to be shouting, screaming, distress, and even the planning officer concedes at paragraph 9.35 of the report that the procedures that the applicant is suggesting that they're going to adopt would not necessarily prevent potential noise and disturbance. That's paragraph 9.35. And what are residents meant to do? There's reference in the report at paragraph 9.35 to a statutory nuisance. And in law, yes, there's going to be statutory nuisance, but are you seriously envisaging residents spending thousands of pounds taking legal action in a court of law on the basis of statutory nuisance? There's also reference to residents being expected to engage the police or the local authority if there's antisocial behaviour. Again, police have other things to do, and if the police are called multiple times to deal with this, that's not going to be something that police officers are going to want to do. So, in effect, local residents are going to be left policing the problem for themselves. They're going to be stuck with the noise. That noise is going to be something which they will have to deal with. It's going to be impossible for them. Just one final point I'd make is the garden. There's reference to the idea that the garden is suitable. It's a tiny garden. Noise is going to leak from there to Mezon and Kewfree Road. Kids are going to be playing at the front of the house. That's what will happen.
Thank you. Your
Thank
time
you.
is up. All right. We've got noises today. Okay, Mr. Latham, when you press the microphone.
Just before I do, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity given for both of us to speak. I have had circulated a note of evidence. There has been a suggestion that there is no evidence about certain things. I will be referring to that in
That's fine.
This is a loss of residential space to a commercial operation in a housing crisis. Care home, well, not for the elderly or disabled. An establishment is not a care home if it's a children's home, Care Act 2000. We know homelessness is exacerbated by a severe shortage in housing supply. There are over 160,000 children in temporary accommodation spending months, if not years, living out of suitcases, according to Shelter, crammed into grim bedsits. There's a desperately acute need for housing. We'll work quickly to get vital homes back into use for families. That was Councillor Eddie Levery announcing the borough's housing buyback scheme last year. So, are the proposals suitable? Are there exceptional reasons? Are the applicants and their plans reliable and credible? Of all the places in the borough, this is the most inappropriate. We've lost our police station. The nearest police desk is in Hayes. The nearest police presence, Ruislip. We're the furthest from any police hub in the whole of Hillingdon, and the Met's making more cuts. The officer's report says there's no planning requirement that new development shall guarantee an absence of potential criminal activity. Really? It's a strategic objective, SO4, to ensure that development contributes to a reduction in crime and disorder. Does this do this? Whatever happened to loss of amenity? That's a planning ground. The report says there is no compelling evidence that criminal activity or antisocial activity is more prevalent or extreme in a children's care home. No. Just look at Ofsted's reports. It's in the evidence material. This type of home is often used to house young people in trouble. There's a potential for 2 carers to 1 adolescent. Doesn't that tell you something? But even if it's not criminal activity, there can be serious antisocial behaviour. Look no further than the report of the Victims Commissioner, quoted in the evidence. Antisocial behaviour can have a devastating effect. The burden falls on victims to navigate a fragmented system, bouncing between police, council and housing agencies, all under their own steam. Meanwhile, the behaviour continues unabated. Even the applicant accepts and foresees risks of noise and disruption. But what about the children themselves? Northwood for teenagers? It's in the middle of nowhere. Entertainment? None. Boys Club? Closed. No parks in the immediate vicinity, woods. What's there to do other than wander around? Secondary schools, miles away. Let's come back to the application. Safeguarding your existing housing stock is a priority unless there are exceptional circumstances. General need is just not good enough. You, the councillors, must ask yourselves, why exceptional circumstances for here, not just in the borough, for here, for this location that you are going to determine. Nothing from social services. There's no report. Just the claim of a meeting by the applicants. Can you rely on the applicants' plans? No track record in establishing a home? No guarantee whatsoever that the adolescents will be from the borough. Is it credible? Noise control. The company is a postbox in Hackney. Changes to the plans. There have been constant changes throughout this process. Parking, I'd say there's no room to swing a cat. The director, one director, first of all, she wasn't a nurse, then she was a nurse. I looked on the nursing register, she's not there. Where, ladies and gentlemen, is the due diligence? In conclusion, the application is speculative and incoherent. It cannot be controlled by conditions. You ran into this problem with Frithwood. It's almost universally opposed by residents. Large turnout tonight. And finally, Sir Chair, permission, I submit, would set a very poor precedent indeed.
Thank you very much. Does any councillors have any questions? Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your petition. Just some questions on the notes of evidence that you've given to us. So there's a criminal activity section which kind of gives some statistics around children's home, which I get the kind of relevance. And then there's a quote, I'll read it out for those that can't see. County lines have seen increasing violence as gangs compete for market share and the exploitation of vulnerable people by these gangs. What's the relevance of that to a change of use application for a children's home?
It's general background of the use that children's homes are being made in relation to the courts. We have an increasing problem with county lines, and the courts are trying to tackle this by placing... there have been a lot of court backlogs, and there's an attempt to break up county lines gangs by placing vulnerable adolescents who are exploited, according to the evidence, public evidence, that are being exploited by these gangs. And so that is the relevance, is the general background of the drugs trade, and the fact that the British Transport Police say that I think it's 38% of those they come into contact with in relation to county lines are aged between, I think it is 11 and, correct me if I'm wrong, 17, but I'm
Sure, thank you. And can I ask another question? So just,
you may.
Again, there's an antisocial behaviour section. In the year to March 2024, there were more than 1 million incidents of antisocial behaviour. The most common experienced by 61% of the victims was noise nuisance, followed by verbal abuse, threatening behaviour, harassment, intimidation. And crime, damage and vandalism, more than 3/4 suffered 2 or more types of behaviour. Again, what's the relevance to this application? This is a broad national statistic from the Victims Commissioner. I'm not trying to undermine what you've said, but we need to focus as a committee on the actual specific application. Statistics that aren't relevant aren't helpful.
Indeed, this is just general background, but there was a suggestion in the officer's report that there was no evidence of potential difficulties. The note is purely from parliamentary and official sources, including Ofsted. A lot of great play was made last time about Ofsted, and I simply submit it, give it what weight, councillors, you feel you should give to it. And if you wish to ignore it entirely, well, there we are.
I think the point is, if I can answer that, unfortunately some of the children in these care homes are, well, by definition this one is going to house very vulnerable children, and some of these vulnerable children unfortunately do get taken advantage of and get caught up in crime. And it's a reality, and we see that in the courts every day.
As do children who aren't in care homes. Again, I'm just trying to get to the relevance.
But
we have teenagers in Northwood, we have lots of young adults there.
But by definition, this home is going to be housing children with emotional and care needs, behavioural needs, and many of those are unfortunately caught up in crime. There's a reference in the report to the restraint techniques that are going to be used because they're going to be necessary. There's reference to sometimes the need for 3 carers per child. By definition, the people who are making this application know that some of the kids coming into these homes are going to be very, very difficult to deal with. They're very vulnerable, and unfortunately, some of those are going to have been caught up in the kind of statistics that my friend has brought to your attention. And I think that's the problem. That's the real concern that we've got.
Thanks.
Councillor Gaelic, you'd like to ask a question?
Thank you, Chair. You object in principle that because it's residential area, might be issues with parking or with traffic, with communication. There's no source for youth. There are no schools nearby. So you object on those grounds that those kids have no place to go when they have free time. But do you agree in principle that this kind of homes should be in residential areas so kids can have, environment which is family-like or resembling family life?
Shall I answer? The objection is to a change of use. Obviously, there is a place and a time and a place for such homes. We're not saying there isn't, but we're saying not in this particular location. There are issues with parking, there are issues about the applicants, there have been issues about the way in which the application has changed, and I'd also say that in terms of conditions, this is not something that can be easily controlled by conditions, and I believe that was one of the issues that was quite a live one in the Frithwood case, which is actually referred to in the officer's report. The Frithwood was about trying to enforce conditions, I believe.
Could I also come in on Councillor Garelick's question, just to deal with that? I think one of the real problems with this is the number of people that are routinely going to be in this house on a regular basis, not just the 4 children, but the 4 carers. Presumably there's going to be a cleaner, there's going to be a cook cooking food for the children, because the idea is that this is akin or analogous to a residential home, similar to the homes in the area. Now, first off, there's going to be 5 cars parked in the front drive. There's not a single road on Moore Park Road that has 5 cars. Most of them will have 2, some will have 2, most will have 1. So that's a massive difference. So that's going to affect that's totally out of character. The other real problem is the number of people that are going to be going through that house on a regular basis. 10 people routinely every day. Most houses on Moore Park Road, Creefrey Road, will have 4 or 5 residents, 6 maybe, but most of them are 2, 3, 4 people. This is going to have 10 people every day, and that's before you start looking at the social workers and the youth workers that are going to be visiting between 4 to 6 weeks for each of those 4 children. And on average, that's probably 1 social worker a day. One social worker a week. That's a lot of people, and on top of that, you've got that's 4 different children, and you're going to have 4 sets of family, 4 sets of friends for each of those children. So the real issue here is the amount of noise, the amount of footfall, more, the amount of coming and going. Visits are going to be allowed between the hours of 9 in the morning and 8 p.m. 8 p.m. I mean, if I hadn't come here, I would have gone home. I would have been home by about 7. I want a bit of peace and quiet. But here, there's going to be this hubbub, this footfall of people, and that's going to be a real problem. And to answer your question directly, if the numbers were not so high, really it wouldn't be such a problem. But here the numbers are pretty horrendous. When we were here 6 months ago, we were talking about 2 carers per child. We're not talking about that anymore. We're talking about 1 carer per child. But if there's some children that have greater care needs, we're looking at 3 carers per child, which means the number of kids will go down. But it's still going to mean a large number of people in that house at any one time. And on top of that, we can't forget that these kids have got emotional needs, behavioural needs, and they're talking about using restraining techniques to deal with these children. And those are the kind of people that are going to be living in these properties. It's going to have an impact on noise. I feel very, very sorry for the people living in the immediate vicinity on Mezzen Road, on Cufrey Road, and also my friend Basker, who's not here today, who's going to be living right in front. And the noise that's going to be emanating from there is going to be tangible, and once it's allowed, once it goes through, it's there forever. It's going to be very difficult to undo it. And what are we meant to do? Ring up Hillingdon Council at 8 o'clock in the evening to say, look, there's noise coming. Are we meant to go round and knock on the door and have a word and wave the good neighbour policy or the noise control plan in the face of the people in the house? We can't do that. And what if do we send an email? Do we phone them? Do we knock on the door? Once this is allowed, that noise problem is going to be a real massive problem. It's going to be a huge problem. And so we urge you, please, to look at, balance the needs of the local residents against the needs of this house and come out against it.
Okay, any more questions? No, thank you. If you'd like to take your seat, please. Okay, I'd like to call the applicant, Miss Diane, I think it's Iggy Musso. Forgive me if you're... Only one. Okay, as you heard before, you have 5 minutes. As soon as you press the red button, and then maybe ask some questions from the councillors.
Good evening all. We would like to thank the elected councillors for giving us this opportunity to share our views before making a decision on this matter. We do appreciate that this establishment of a children's home in this neighbourhood has raised questions and anxiety, and we hope that the revised management plan provides more clarity. We would like to use this opportunity to further highlight our commitment...
Sorry, could you put the mic closer to you so we can hear you? Thank you, sorry.
That's fine. Our commitment and dedication to work with the community. Access to education has been identified as a concern. There are 2 state schools within a 15-minute drive that actively welcome looked after children. They are children in care. Additionally, for children whose needs present more challenging for mainstream educational settings, alternative educational provisions will be made available. These provisions may include off-site tutoring, virtual schooling, and specialised educational programs designed to meet individual needs of each child. It is important to emphasise that this home is not an institution, but a family-style home with robust management and strict oversight. This would include routine monitoring by Ofsted and monthly independent inspections. The home will comply with all relevant local planning conditions and quality care standards, ensuring that clear rules and structured routines are in place. In accordance with our revised management plan, there will be a maximum of 4 staff members on site at any given time, 3 support workers and 1 manager. With regards to parking concerns, we have engaged with both our internal highways officer and Hillingdon's highways officer, both of whom have confirmed that the property can facilitate 5 dedicated on-site parking spaces. 4 of these spaces would be allocated for staff and 1 for visitors. This arrangement effectively eliminates the need for on-street parking. Additionally, staff members are encouraged to car share, and where possible, pre-scheduled visits will be limited to essential professionals to further minimise activity. Many meetings will be conducted virtually or off-site.
Community members have expressed concerns regarding potential noise disturbances. We wish to reassure the community that the presence of up to 4 children within the home is not anticipated to generate any more noise than a typical family home. However, we recognize our primary responsibility in maintaining a peaceful environment, and as such, we have developed a comprehensive noise management plan which we encourage neighbours to review. Furthermore, our operational schedule has been carefully structured to minimize any potential disruption during peak traffic hours, particularly during school drop-off and pick-up times. It is regrettable that some objections appear to be rooted in misconceptions and stereotypes about children in care. These young individuals have experienced significant harm, including neglect and abuse, and they require stability, compassion, and opportunities for personal growth. The assumption that their presence will negatively impact the community is not only inaccurate but also unjust. Assertions that this home will lead to crime or disturbances are also unfounded. These children are seeking safety and support, not to cause harm. With the appropriate care and professional guidance, they have every opportunity to heal and contribute positively to society. The opposition to this home reflects a broader societal issue, the stigma surrounding children in care. We urge the community to embrace this home as an opportunity to demonstrate empathy and inclusivity. By doing so, the community can collectively foster a neighbourhood characterised by understanding and a commitment to positive social change. We appreciate the engagement of the community in this discussion and remain committed to ongoing dialogue to address any concerns in a respectful and transparent manner. Thank you for your time and consideration. We are now happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wana and then Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. Am I right to understand you mentioned the numbers of people on site, 4 staff members, 4 carers, 4 occupants?
That's correct.
So the issue is a number of people, right, on this site. So so you mentioned 12 people.
No, we've mentioned 4 staff members and 4 children. That's 8 people.
That's the maximum number.
3 support workers.
1 manager.
Right.
Excuse me, can I just interrupt? Look, no one interrupted the 2 petitioners before. So can we just have some decorum and just let them finish answering the questions without remarks from the audience? Thank you.
Through you, Chairman. So there will be potentially visitors as well and health professionals.
So just to clarify, there's no cleaner, there's no cook. That's the expectation of support workers. It's ordinary for the support workers to do that as part of their job. Children will also join in with cooking as well. In terms of visitors, yes, children have social workers. So social workers looked after children every 6 weeks. That's the statutory requirement. And regarding the inspections once per month, that's by 1 individual, not 4 different individuals. There is also no visitors from family to the home because it's disruptive. If there is 4 different sets of families coming to a home where there are other children as well, it does not work. So that's not ordinary for a children's home. Contact happens off-site, usually in contact centres or other facilities. And regarding, what was the other visitors that was mentioned? There was another visitor.
And friends.
Friends. Yeah, it's not ordinary that children's friends would come to the home either. Yes, because the nature of a children's home, there are other children there. The whole idea is for them to have stability. So the coming of goings of 4 different sets of friends, 4 different sets of family would disrupt stability.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for clearing up the point about the cookers and cleaners. I can't see a school travel plan in there. So my concern would be that a number of these children that have got complex needs may be collected from the home by school transport and dropped back off by school transport. So that is additional vehicles outside the property during school pickup times. So what is your plan for that?
Part of the plan for a child when they come to stay with us would be that we would be arranging their education. So we would then be taking children to and from school, or potentially school will be virtual or school will be off-site.
Okay. Through you, Chairman. So there'd be no children with EHCPs that would be required to go to a special school setting within the borough?
Children will potentially have EHCP plans. However, they don't always require going to a specialist school. The EHCP plan can also be part of a plan that lessons are virtual, or that lessons take place in a particular library or contact centre. So it's not restricted to children who have EHCP plans only then attending specialist schools. They could also attend mainstream schools and have that extra support in place.
Okay, thank you. No further.
Anybody else got any questions? If you'd like to take your seat, thank you very much. Councillor Lewis, would you like to come? As you're aware, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I represent my residents, families, parents, elderly and hard-working people who have built their lives in a peaceful residential community. We are not opposed to care homes or supporting those in need, but this particular proposal raises serious concerns about its impact on our neighbourhood. This isn't just about policy, it's about fairness, preserving the area's character and ensuring it remains a safe, livable residential area. A commercial care home would bring constant disruption, staff arriving at all times, frequent deliveries and a continuous flow of visitors, care workers and professionals. Our neighbourhood was not designed for this level of activity. The proposed parking layout is also totally unworkable. I don't know how officers think that you can get 5 cars in there. When I've tried to work it out, I believe there's a 2 centimetre clearance on the turning circle. From the outset, we've highlighted key issues: loss of neighbourhood character, noise disturbances, traffic congestion, parking shortages and pollution, none of which have been adequately addressed. The site has a PTAL score of 0, meaning extremely poor public transport access, further worsening parking and traffic problems. Noise is another major concern. The applicants themselves acknowledge there will be shouting and disturbances. Their noise management policy is no guarantee of peace. Foul language and loud disruptions would affect both residents and the young children at St Martin's Prep School, which is located just 1 garden away. No parents wants their 3-year-old exposed to that. Safety is critical. If a resident were to leave the premises unsupervised and enter the school grounds, it could force a lockdown. This is not a hypothetical risk, it's a real one that cannot be ignored. Additionally, the applicant's credibility is questionable. Their management plan lacks detail and their directors have no verifiable experience. An online search reveals nothing about their qualifications. How can we trust them to run a responsible care home? At its core, the proposal priorities financial gains over genuine care. If the applicants truly prioritised these children's welfare, they would have selected a more suitable location, one with outdoor space, better school access and essential public services nearby. Instead, they have avoided meaningful engagement with my community, my residents, for over 9 months. Can't read my own writing now. Local opposition is not just a handful of voices. Over 300 neighbours have signed multiple petitions raising valid planning concerns. We simply ask you to put Hillingdon residents first. Approving this application would dismiss the concerns of those who have nurtured this community for years. It would put profit over the well-being of residents.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Richard. Does any councillors have any questions for Councillor Lewis? No? Thank you very much, sir.
Could I ask one question about condition 4? Because you've got two members of staff sleeping overnight in one bedroom. Is that absolutely...
I'll get that answered for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. One member of staff would be on duty at night, one would be working, would be at sleep, would have been on 7:30 to 11 p.m, so would be sleeping overnight in case of any disturbance.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Lewis, can you stay down? Councillor Mann wants to ask you a question.
Sorry, Councillor Lewis. I did have one question. You mentioned in your speech that the applicant has a lack of experience in this field. I'm just curious to know how that would be a planning consideration, because surely if you do something first time, then you wouldn't do anything first time if you always had to have experience. So that was just my question in the relevance of the mention of that.
How can you accept the plans that are in place if they have no previous experience?
What Councillor Mann's trying to ask is that... Well, you can ask the question again, Councillor Mann, so you explain it to him in a different way.
I'll try and ask it in exactly the same way. Obviously, we're here to approve this application or not approve it based on its merit in terms of planning. My question was pretty simple, is that the mention of the lack of experience of the applicant, how does that affect our decision-making on this committee?
It's not planning. No. It's not what Councillor Mann's saying. It's not a planning consideration. That's what he's implying. Councillor Ross, could you answer that question?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just to be clear, the applicant's suitability or their qualifications, etc., is not for the local planning authority to judge. Effectively, we need to consider the acceptability or otherwise of the land use, whether or not the applicant is suitable. It comes down to the Ofsted application. They are the qualified people to assess whether the applicant is suitable to operate the care home. It is outside of the local planning authority's expertise, and it wouldn't be appropriate or be a planning consideration for us to consider that.
Sorry, I thought you said earlier that noise was a consideration. Is that not part of the planning consent?
Thanks, Councillor. Yes, noise is a consideration in a planning application, but the applicant's sort of suitability or qualifications or experience is not a consideration. Does that help?
Not at all, because I don't know how you.
I think we'll just stop here, because the fact is that we're a planning committee. There's certain elements in planning that we have to deal with: noise disturbance, parking, stuff like that, but we do not judge what people's professions and whether they're qualified. The committee's here just to deal it on the planning issues. Ofsted, even if we approve it this evening or don't approve it, if we approved it, it still has to go to Ofsted for approval. So it's not, we're only looking at the planning element of this proposal, not the rights and wrongs of it. It's just what the planning issues are. That's what we're trying to say here. So whether the applicant is qualified or not qualified is not a planning consideration for us.
No, okay, I understand that, but you've taken evidence from the applicant about parking, child management, noise, not disturbing the local residents, safeguarding the local school, and residents, and my residents. They're seriously worried about.
Again, we understand that they're really worried.
But you spent half the time listening to officers talking about reports about noise and parking.
When we had the first petition that came through, these are the things that were raised to us. We decided to move away, have a site visit at a time that we could see what the traffic situation was. We gave the applicant the opportunity to address some of the concerns that were raised the first time. Unfortunately, you weren't here the first time, councillors. So that's why those things are being readdressed. But whether the competence of the applicant is not a planning consideration.
I withdraw that, but I still say there are material concerns about the running of the home, which becomes, I would have thought, an HMO. That's because you're...
HMO is over 6... You've got to be careful what you're saying here, because there's loads of planning terms we can throw around. I think we get what you're trying to say. I appreciate that. I'll let the committee sort of now digest it, and we'll have
Can I deal
No,
with this?
no, sorry, no. No, you've had your opportunity. You've had your opportunity. Sir, please take your seat. Councillors, thank you very much. It's not gag. Please, don't make stupid remarks like that. That's just unacceptable. Okay? We have been anything but gagging. We've accepted 2 petitions on this evening. Okay? So I don't really resent that accusation of this committee. Right, can we go? I'll take it now to, do officers want to come back on any points?
We've heard a number of points, and I think, well, I feel personally that we've addressed the material planning points in the report, so I don't want to revisit everything, but I thought it might be helpful just to sort of take a high-level look again. So we've heard from the petitioners concerns about potential crime, antisocial behaviour, etc. But what I feel, essentially, they're quite sort of generic statements. We've seen that those were kind of statements of, from websites talking about general statistics. But what I wanted to bring members back to is just to be clear that the development plan does support the provision of care homes. It supports the provision of care homes in the borough, and in particular draw your attention to policy DMH8 in the local plan part 2, which relates specifically to sheltered housing and care homes. And criterion number 3 there does say that the accommodation should be fully integrated into the residential surroundings. So I think that was helpful because it does indicate that the local plan is supportive in principle of care homes, and it anticipates that they're embedded in residential surroundings. So what we need to consider is whether there is specific planning harms of the proposal before us today in this particular location.
Okay, Councillor Bennett and then Councillor Davis.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just for the record, I think you've been incredibly generous with this. We spent an awful lot of time, rightly so, reviewing this application on its first hearing. There were gaps, there were questions we needed answers, there were things that didn't make sense. We deferred a decision to have a site visit. The site visit was very fruitful. We have again heard the application this evening. You've allowed 2 petitioners. I've never known that on any application. Nobody wants types of development necessarily next to where they live. This is a residential area, and where the petitioners are kind of saying we don't want children's homes in residential areas unless they're going to be on an industrial estate or in a retail park. They generally are in residential areas. The parking was a real sticking point before. The plans were not right in terms of how you'd have to move one car out to get another one out. That, I think, has now been corrected. There were some tests while we were on site. There was ample parking on the road. The road was quite wide. I was surprised at how busy it was, to be honest, in terms of the traffic and the noise. The school drop-off didn't seem to hinder parking too much, particularly in a road where there's lots of off-street parking. I just thought it was worth just going back through with the conditions. So the fact that we as a local authority are recommending this application for approval says that as far as kind of planning legislation is concerned, we believe it's deemed approvable, and as such, so would the inspectorate if this went to appeal. The challenge is if we reject and it goes to appeal, is that all of the conditions that officers have negotiated with the applicant could effectively be taken away. So we have, looking at the paperwork, obviously the sort of usual conditions around time limit, management plan, noise management plan, good neighbourhood policy, restrictions on the maximum number of staff, restrictions on the maximum number of children that can occupy, restrictions on visiting times. All of the things that really have come out in the petitioner and the ward councillors' objections are conditioned, and if this goes to appeal, which if we reject it, I'm pretty certain it would, all of those could be overridden. and taken away. I'm right in saying that. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're right. Officers want to reply to that?
No, that's correct. So if there was an appeal, essentially the local planning authority would put forward recommended conditions, but it would be down to the planning inspector whether or not to impose those or to include different ones.
I just thought that was a point worth mentioning. I'll defer to other members of the committee if they have questions.
Okay, Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. I have two questions. My first question is, can I get some clarity on the number of staff that's going to be on site overnight? Are we saying there's going to be one person asleep from the officers? What we heard there was a bit confusing. Can we just get some clarity on that?
Yeah, there'll be two staff overnight. One would be sleeping and one would be on duty. Obviously the children would be expected to be asleep at night, so if someone woke up, there'll be a second member of staff there if needed. There's also management on call as well if needed.
Can I just get clarity on the number of staff during the day? Sorry, I have got an additional question after that, Chairman.
Yeah, number of staff during the day is 4 maximum, as per condition 4.
Sorry, Chairman, that doesn't sit right with me. So during the day we're going to have 4 staff when potentially the children will be at school, and in the evening when the property is full we will only have 2 staff. Can we look at adjusting that condition?
In terms of officers' opinion, we would not think it be necessary, given, at night time, the staff is, I suppose, there will be staff on duty until 8 p.m. in terms of 3 number of staff. The nighttime staff number comes on at 11 p.m. In generally, we do not think it would be reasonable to request additional numbers for night time when people are likely to be asleep.
Sorry, Chairman, can I come back on that?
Yeah, can I just let Ros come?
Just before Ros comes back, yeah. There's a potential to have 4 17-year-olds in this building. How many 17-year-olds go to bed at 8 o'clock?
Ros, do you want to?
Yeah, just to clarify, so I would consider it to be a matter for Ofsted in terms of thinking about the staff to children ratio and how many staff are required at night. It wouldn't be for us as local planning authority to comment on that. I think what's important is that we've proposed the condition limiting to 4 staff at any one time, and that has been accepted by the applicant, and they would need to work within that. So if that meant they needed less they could only take less children, then so be it. Yeah, thanks.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I disagree. If we proposed a condition of 4 staff during the day, and it's been agreed at, we should have 4 staff in the evening. We're dealing with children that have got highly complex needs, and I understand it's down to Ofsted that part, but it's down to us to ensure
I think we're getting a little bit muddled here. I think what's happening is that at any time, whether it's in the morning or at night time, 4 staff is the maximum that's allowed on site. So whether that's 2 in the evening or 4 in the evening, that's still the same case. So what we've said, how we try to control it, is that we don't want more staff. So we're saying, if there's 4 in the day, there can't be those 4 staying over in the evening and then another 2 already there, so there'd be 6 staff in the morning. Do you understand?
Yeah.
They have to maximise their staffing to have only 4 staff. But again, as what Ros is trying to tell you, that is we've given on a planning view that we don't want any more than 4 at any time, and then it's up to Ofsted then to negotiate and make that come a reality.
Sorry, Chairman, for you, can I ask that we delegate the Chairman to review that at some point, because I just want clarity on that, and I understand we might not be able to get clarity in the room today. So could I ask that we delegate powers to officers to review that and just make sure that we have got adequate staffing to prevent the residents from getting increased noise due to lack of staff? Then we're keeping it within the planning terms.
Ros, do you want to answer?
So my concern is that as planners we're not qualified to determine how many staff should be there to look after children with particular needs. It's just not within our remit, and it's in Ofsted's remit, so it wouldn't be appropriate in my view. What is appropriate is that we've determined that we don't want more than 4 staff at any one time on the premises in the interests of neighbouring amenity, and hence we've proposed that condition. So I don't think it's appropriate to go further in terms of specifying the staff. What the applicant has provided is an indicative staffing schedule, and it's not appropriate for us to question whether children require additional staff.
Okay.
Excuse me, please. If you can't control yourself, please.
Okay, Chairman, my second question, I'll make way on that one, but on my second question, the visitors' times, after taking into account what the applicant has said, that there'll be no visits from families, there'll be no visits from friends, in order to help the residents within the area, could we adjust that time to medical or office hours, so between 9 and 5 or 9 and 6 for visitors? If they're not having family and friends visit and that's going to be off-site, there would be no reason for an 8 o'clock visit. So if we were to drop that back to 6 o'clock...
I don't see that as an issue, to be honest, that if it could be adjusted to that would eradicate rush hour. Although in the case of an emergency they can come at any time. Of course,
if there was an ambulance or something like that and needed to attend.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, just to clarify around that, so in principle, members, if you felt that it was appropriate to restrict those hours further, that's an option that's open to you. I suppose I would just pose the question, there are obviously a row of houses in the street. I expect those houses do receive visitors beyond office hours, but it's entirely your decision.
Councillor Davis?
Yeah, I would still move forward with that. We're not dealing with a normal house as such. We're dealing with a house that potentially could need additional support at additional times. So, but I would still say 6 o'clock is valid unless it was an emergency or a medical professional that had to attend.
Fine. So we'll adjust that on the conditions. Any other questions?
Nothing from me at the moment, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bennett?
So just to clarify as well, the point that Ros picked up on was around, we are here to review the change of use planning application. The decision as to whether this goes ahead rests with Ofsted in terms of the applicant, their background, their capability, their proposal in terms of the maximum number of children, the maximum number of staff members, etc.
Yeah, correct.
You know, I think we've spent an awful lot of time on this, and it's quite clear residents don't want it in this area. I do think, to a degree, a lot of particularly the data that we've been shared is the most extreme end of what could possibly happen, from county lines, drugs, to knife crime, sexual violence, coercion, intimidation. All of these kind of things that have been put in terms of the petition are very much at the most extreme end and actually could take place anywhere in Northwood and not just at a children's home. I think on the basis, as much as residents won't see it as us protecting them, on the basis that this would go to appeal, likely, and would be granted, no doubt, and we risk losing all of these conditions where we are limiting the number of staff, where we're limiting the number of children, where we're limiting the visiting hours, we put the parking management plan in, the noise disturbance plan, all of that is at risk if the local authority rejects this and it goes to appeal and it is granted. So I, on that basis, recommend the application for approval in line with Officer's recommendation.
And those changes?
With Councillor Davies' amendments in terms of the visiting hours.
Thank you. Councillor Mand, then Councillor Davies and Councillor Valana.
Thank you, Chair. And first of all, thank you to yourself for giving this application ample amount of time, like Councillor Bennett said, and thanks for the officers as well. I just wanted to make a small observation in terms of what the petitioners were mentioning. It's clear the petitioner said we're not against children's homes, etc., but obviously the vibe we're getting is we just don't want it close to our houses. I mean, it's important that we do realise, I work in an educational setting myself, and we have children from all sorts of backgrounds, and these children need stability, and we work in a mainstream school, I do, and they have EHCP plans there as well. So we need to get over this fact that these children are some sort of troublemakers, etc. No more troublemakers than probably my own 3 children as well. In regards to the 6 p.m., changing the 8 p.m. to 6 p.m., I just have an observation on that, is we're now restricting that time to rush hour, where there could have been a visitor after, let's say, 5:30, 6 p.m., and that would probably make, in my opinion, the situation quite easier. It would be easier on the roads at that sort of time than 6.
Yeah, I think what Councillor Davis is trying to get is, obviously if there's emergency or there's something that a doctor has to come in after that time, even for a checkup or anything like that, we'd have to accept that is a responsibility that have to happen. What he's trying to say, I think, is that he doesn't want, most social workers work in the day, they should be able to come between those times. It shouldn't be such a hardship to do so.
Sorry, just getting the nitty-gritty of that. Is that arrival time or exit time?
Arrival time. Yeah, arrival time.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Councillor Davis.
Chairman, on times like this, I wish we had more powers, because I know for a fact that if this goes to appeal and it sits on the planning inspectorate, the Mayor of London, whatever we're going to call it, this will be pushed through, and we will have no protection for our residents. It doesn't sit right with me, but I think at the present time, this is the best thing for the residents, what we have in place to protect them. So I would go with officers' recommendations here, but I would also advise the residents that if you do have concerns, use the council services that are available, see it, say it and report it. The Mayor of London's favourite term, use it to your advantage, report the noise, report any complaints. It may not happen, I'm not preempting that, but use them services. So I will go with officers' recommendations.
Okay, so I'm proposed and seconded. Councillor Wilana, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, just to echo what is being said, it's difficult. I mean, we understand the sentiments from the community and the residents. It's there. So we are just going to make decision on the planning issues. But obviously the realities are there. So as I said, it's difficult. Yeah.
Okay, with a heavy heart, I'm going to have to put this to the floor. So we have a proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, those in favour, please? That's unanimous. Okay, thank you. That has been approved. Thank you very much. We go to the last item on this evening's agenda, which is item 8, which is the Lido, and that is Mitchell. I don't really mean to be rude, but we have a committee to continue. Yeah, I'm not asking you. I'm asking my member to please stop participating with the audience. Thank you. Look, sorry.
Are we making complaints as well applications because that road is speed bump? There's lots of issues with that school, with the traffic on that road. As residents,
I've been to the school.
We haven't raised it, but we can do it. I will do it. I will. We will do what we thought we were doing. You know, if we do it, sorry, if we do it, at the moment. I know, I understand exactly where you are. You don't want to go to appeal because you won't have anything there.
I promise you,
I understand
if
that.
this went to appeal, you guys would be in a worse situation.
Yes, I understand. We understand that.
We have done what we can here. We've got to finish this off where we're at.
No, I understand.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
That's where we're at the moment. Use your ward councillors, use the process. Okay. We do thank you for your time for two petitions. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. let's get the last item done. Welcome, Mitchell.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, councillors. Forgive me if I stumble a little bit. First time presenting in England, and if you can't understand me, that's a New Zealand accent, so, or a planning term. It could be one or the other, couldn't it, really?
Equally Australian, that would have been
so this is item 8. It's at Royslip Lido. Planning permission is being sought for the replacement of 2 existing public toilet facilities at the Lido with 2 new larger facilities with improved capacity and services to meet visitor demand. There's also ancillary works related to improve the access and associated landscaping. I will flick through to this plan here, which shows the site location plan. Now to the east, down the bottom of the page, is the Woody Bay toilet block location, and then to the west, to the top of the page, is the Willow Lawn toilet block location. The Lido, as probably most of you know, is a water reservoir with an artificial beach, extensive trails, playgrounds, Royslip Railway, and other community facilities. It's well used. The 2 areas of works have existing toilet blocks, and so this is a replacement application. I'll switch to a contextual aerial here. You can see that the 2 blocks are essentially to the north, Willow Lawn toilet block. That hard stand around there is just a car park. There's associated facilities with the Royslip Railway, and in the surrounds is Royslip Woods, I believe. To the south, Woody Bay toilet block location you can't see there, but there's also a cafe and some more buildings associated with the railway. There's no residential neighbours in proximity to this development. In terms of constraints, both sites are on greenbelt land. They're located on potentially contaminated land. They're located within a nature conservation site of Grade 1, and they're located within the Royslip Mott and Bailey Archaeological Priority Area. Both sites are adjacent to, but not located within, the Royslip Woods Site of Special Scientific Interest. Neither of the sites are subject to flooding risk, just to make that clear as well. One other point I'd like to raise, just in relation to, as this is on greenbelt land, the site is subject to somewhat extensive planning history, but most importantly there is a application approved in 2012 for the Willow Lawn toilet block, and then there is an application approved recently in 2017 for the demolition of a workshop building associated with the Lido Railway and construction of a replacement building. Therefore, in terms of the principle of development in the greenbelt, there's some establishment there. This is the site block plan. Obviously the site's spread out, so it's a little bit hard to see, so I'll move through. This is the existing Woody Bay toilets that are to be demolished. And here's some photos for context. So that building in the forefront is the building to be demolished. Here's a panoramic view. You can see the Lido itself to the right. This is the Willow Lawn toilet block to be demolished. Again, here's a contextual photo. The building next door is, I believe, related to Royslip Railway. And here's another photo of that. You can see the car park in behind. Just to note, there are no changes to access or car parking as a result of this proposal. It's merely to do with the toilet blocks. Here's the proposed ground floor plan for the Woody Bay toilet block. The block is somewhat larger, but not extensively so, and essentially sits on the existing footprint. And here's the Willow Lawn toilet block, a similar circumstance. It sits on the existing footprint and is slightly larger, but not unreasonably so. Here are the proposed elevations of Woody Bay, and here are the proposed elevations of Willow Lawn. The purpose of the facilities is to provide additional facilities due to the extent of demand received in the area. The new facilities would improve visitor experience by increasing the capacity of the toilet facilities. They'll be fully inclusive, including step-free access. They'll have male and female toilets, family changing rooms, accessible toilets, as already mentioned, plant rooms and storage areas. Both new blocks would be single-storey, constructed out of brick with zinc roofing and steel doors. The materials have been chosen for their durability and longevity, and also their kind of ease of maintenance. In particular, I'll point out with the roof is quite a pitch, one that's useful for maintenance in terms of being in a wooded area, and two, in the roof of, I believe, the Woody Bay block, there's actually a water tank up in there as well, so there is some clearance needed, but these are single-storey buildings in terms of usable floor area. The application also proposes some changes to access and landscaping. However, these changes, especially the landscaping details, are somewhat indicative in nature, as you can see here for Woody Bay, and therefore there is a condition of consent recommended to secure a landscaping scheme in the event of approval. Just to note, no tree removal would occur as part of the application. However, demolition and construction works would occur in proximity to several mature trees on the site, and a supporting agricultural report has been provided with the application. In terms of consultation, there were 2 neighbouring representations received. Both of these raised the issue of increased visitors from construction of the toilets. In the officer's opinion, any induced demand from the construction of new toilets is going to be insubstantial in the scheme of the Lido site. And I believe the other issue raised was around the council's financial decisions in building new toilets, which isn't a material planning consideration. In terms of other consults, the council consulted with internally with the urban design team and highways, access and our trees officer, all of who are supportive of the application subject to conditions that have been included in the recommendation. In an external consultation, GLASS, which is the Greater London Archaeology Service, Natural England and the Environment Agency were all consulted. This is due to the somewhat sensitive nature of the site. No opposition was received, though a recommended condition was proposed by Natural England, I believe, which was has been adopted as well. In terms of the issues at play, as the site's on greenbelt land, there is an issue of the principle of development. However, in 2 points regard to that, one, these are a replacement of existing buildings, and therefore the establishment of these buildings has already been established in principle. Second of all is that these buildings will facilitate the use of the site for recreational activities, which is, as identified by the National Planning Policy Framework, one of the key uses of the greenbelt, and the greenbelt supports development that looks to achieve recreational amenity. In terms of the trees officer initially did have concerns over the proximity of the development to the protected root area of one oak tree. However, after provision of further information, they are now supportive. Both toilets are step-free access and there are no accessibility concerns. They provide a good opportunity to get some new landscaping and obviously new buildings, which will improve the Lido as a whole for the community. In terms of contaminated land, which was mentioned, no contaminated land has been discovered to date. However, the applicant will go ahead with further intrusive investigations as they get into groundworks. That's a standard process where if contaminated land was found, then there are processes in place that they would follow to notify the council and we would proceed from there. An ecological appraisal was submitted with the application confirming there would be no direct impact on any habitat, including bat habitat, as a result of the proposal. It did recommend 2 conditions relating to a construction management plan and also management of construction lights to avoid impacting migrating and foraging animals. These have been included in the recommended conditions. Therefore, on balance, proposed development would not give rise to any undue harm to the surrounding environment. The principle of the replacement of the 2 toilet facilities is supported as they support the established outdoor recreational uses at Royslip Lido and will preserve the openness and visual amenity of the greenbelt land by A, being single story, so of a relatively compact design, and 2, being located on the existing buildings. Any potential ecological impacts from the proposal can be acceptably mitigated through the imposition of recommended conditions, and the proposal is considered to comply with the Development Plan, London Plan and the National Planning Policy Framework. In the officer's opinion, there's no material considerations that indicate a contrary decision should be taken.
Thank you very much. That was very thorough. Councillor Small, would you like to take a seat? I believe you would like to speak.
Well, thank you, Chair. When I walked in this evening, I thought Ruislip Lido toilets were going to be were popular. Clearly not. But I just wanted to speak on this because it's something me and my ward colleagues have worked very hard on getting these toilets refurbished and rebuilt. And I just wanted to say how in points 3.3 and 7.19 it talks about landscaping, and I think it's incredibly important that condition is put in there just to protect the integrity of the Lido. But also, if members were minded, I would suggest that they do question officers or the applicant representing the council in and around the sewage and the piping. These toilets are closed a lot, and that causes people to spend a penny in other places in and around the Lido, which may not be the place that we would spend a penny if we were there. But when there's a lot of visitors there, this can cause what is basically a form of antisocial behaviour. Very much in favour of this. I don't think having some nice new loos is going to be the thing that attracts lots of people up to the Lido. We have a lot of challenges up there as ward councillors, but I'm not sure how. I actually think the new loos will decrease the antisocial behaviour, decrease some of the issues that my residents face. So I'm very much in favour, and I hope that I think it's important to come and celebrate the work that me and my ward colleagues have done in lobbying the council to get these new toilets built, and I really hope that along with having the landscaping condition and encouraging colleagues in the room to question around, very exciting, I know, the piping, which is the issue that has kept them closed. I know far too much about the Ruislip Lido toilets than I should. I would hope that the committee will be in favour of this application, and I thank you very much, Chairman, for allowing me to come here in my peak councillor moment to talk about toilets.
You're more than welcome. Any questions for Councillor? If you'd like to take your seats. Fantastic site. Did you know that underneath that lake is a village which was Edward I. The Ruislip people who lived in that area refused to pay the taxes, so he flooded it. And also, Summer Holiday was filmed there with Cliff Richard, so there you go. A bit of history. So Councillor Bennett, Councillor Davis and Councillor Valana.
I guess we have to come on to Councillor Smallwood's plumbing question. But before we do, I noticed that the toilets, so we're demolishing toilets and putting in toilets and changing rooms. Now, I've only been to Ruislip Lido a couple of times, but my understanding is that you can't go in the water. So is there a risk that by putting in changing rooms, we are going to increase the likelihood that people will go in the water?
Well, I think we're in a special place today because we have the applicant who's just stepped forward who's one of our own. I just have to say that first. Sorry, can you... We wouldn't usually give you speaking rights, but I'm feeling very lenient this evening, so okay, I'll allow it. So,
thank you, Chair. They're not changing rooms; they're family changing rooms for changing babies, and there's one changing place which is for changing the sanitary things on adults. So it's all for accessibility and disabled people, all for families. Where if you've got a mum and two children, you can use the toilets, change the babies all at the same time in one space. But there's no specific changing room for going swimming or anything like that.
Thank you.
I mean, there's more changing space in a maternity hospital. Looking at that, I mean, how many babies are we expecting there at once? But I mean, look, it's not for me to question what look like very good designs, and the porter cabins that are there currently that Councillor Smallwood said are constantly closed and people are forced to explore alternative options. You know, clearly it's not a setup that can continue, and the ward councillors seem to have done a valiant job in championing this. The only other point I had on this was just on 3.1, where we say that the new facilities would significantly increase capacity, visitor experience, and would be fully inclusive. I think there would be people that would question, in the absence of a gender-neutral toilet, that they're probably not fully inclusive. It's just a wording on the report that we might want to correct, given that these are likely to stay with us for decades to come.
We'll have male and female changing rooms. That's fine. Councillor Davis, do you want to say something?
I think it's a good project, considering what the toilets are like at the moment. As Councillor Smalls brought it up, the plumbing. Can we just double check that there is some sort of overflow backup plan? if that's what you want to call it. Is there adequate fail-safes?
Councillor, I can assure you there is an adequate fail-safe. In front of that building already is a very large sewage attenuation tank, which is good for at least 24 hours, sometimes 2 days. And then the sewage is then pumped separately into the main sewer and reservoir road from that tank. So if there is any blockage, all your sewage is in the tank sitting waiting for an outside lorry-mounted pump to take it away.
Thank you.
I do think that councillors will be out there if there's a problem, clearing it for the residents and getting it done.
Yep. If I may come...
Yes, of course, mate.
On that, Chairman, it doesn't seem that we need to put any more time into this. I'm happy to move with officer's recommendation before we get all flushed away.
Oh, well done. Councillor Alana.
Thank you, Chairman. I hugely welcome this application, and I am exceedingly pleased to see a good work is going to be done. And Ward Councillor, I think, would be very pleased to spend a penny in a very harmonious manner over there, and then with enhanced facilities, and then Councillor is putting residents first. Thank you. I second this.
Proposed and seconded, but I have a question from Councillor Gaelic.
Thank you, Chair. I think I read in one of the reports that there will be a source heat pump to heat the water, but there will be no heating in any of those premises?
I think officers might be able to take this. Do you want it, or can I ask the applicant? It's easier. Do you want? Is there heat?
The air source heat pump is to provide, to provide domestic hot water, but we don't consider that you need to heat the spaces because they're all going to be ventilated.
So I'm proposing second. A show of hands, all those in favour. That's unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody, for this evening. Thank you for your patience and your hard work, and thank you for being very patient with everything. Thank you. Good night, and have a safe journey home.